Hey guys, it's Dr. Thayer and Ms. Fletcher back to talk about your very first essay for this class, which will be a rhetorical analysis. And a rhetorical just means a rhetoric is the art of communication. So it can be writing, speaking, etc. And what we're going to do is look at how somebody is doing it well. And so in our case, in our class, we're going to be looking at TED Talks. If you haven't seen TED Talks, they have them on a ton of different topics, and you get to pick one that you're interested in. So we have had students write, I've had students write about things from frog sex, honest, like I'm not even kidding you, to the science of basketball, which actually looked at angles and all sorts of geometry.
Absolutely. I've had students write about like music. There's TED Talks about music, and we can show you in just a second just where to find TED Talks, because it's really easy to search if you haven't tried it before. So when we're talking about a rhetorical analysis of a TED Talk, the most important thing is to think about how the speaker is making a good argument. What are the ways in which they grab the audience's attention? So that's really the purpose of this essay, okay? So you're going to apply the principles of rhetorical strategies to an argument. That's something we're going to get into in just a minute. We wanted to talk about the essay first. So first, you're going to find a TED Talk. You can pick whatever one you want, except for Sir Ken Robinson's How Do Schools Kill Creativity, because that one is going to be for your discussion board posts. So you're going to find a TED Talk, analyze it in order to evaluate the effectiveness of the speaker's argument, okay? So you want to make sure that you're, looking at how the speaker is engaging the audience, what kind of research is the speaker using, if any. There's a lot of ways that speakers engage with their audiences, especially the real popular TED Talks.
So we'll talk more about what the rhetorical appeals are in just a minute. But thinking back to what we talked about in the first video about what is an argument, this is really, the rhetorical appeals are sort of where argument and persuasion meet. You have to have all of the things. So some of you guys might have heard of these before, the rhetorical appeals. So we're going to pull up our PowerPoint on that. And they are, dun, dun, dun. Wait for it, guys. So exciting. So we have ethos, pathos, and logos. So ethos is about credibility, which we'll talk about more. Pathos or pathos, you can pronounce it either way, is about empathy or emotions. And then logos is about logic. So logos is really the part we talked about last time, making sure your argument is logically sound. The other two pieces are really what makes your argument like a whole, as a whole persuasive. So,
and you need all three of those things, right? You can't, it's a fine balance. It's a really delicate balance between the three. And we're going to kind of go over that today.
So we're going to start off with ethos, and ethos is about the speaker or the writer's trustworthiness. So are we buying what they're selling pretty much? Do they seem credible? And so the way you can kind of remember that one trick is to think, does this person seem ethical? So ethical sounds like ethos.
Right. Does this person care about me? Right. So that's another way that they, a lot of politicians will kind of appeal to ethos by saying like, we as a nation can da, 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 or they'll bring up, that they were raised in a small town and blah, 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 right? When in fact, they've got millions and they're not like us, but they use that appeal to make that connection.
Or even rappers do that too, right? After they hit it big, they're like, I live on the streets. Like, no, you don't, Jay-Z.
Right.
You live in a mansion with Beyonce.
Exactly.
So here are some examples of appeals to ethos. So you can actually use ethos and appeals to ethos in multiple ways. So there's a commercial with Jennifer Hudson for Weight Watchers where she's singing a song and saying, believe. If you believe, it will work.
And now, Ms. Fletcher, why is Jennifer Hudson in a Weight Watchers commercial instead of like Kim Kardashian?
Well, because Jennifer Hudson used to be big, but she really wasn't that big if you look her up. But she lost a lot of weight, right? So she's somebody we trust her because she knows about the subject versus if you had like a Bella Hadid who in my
teeny tiny,
she's tiny, right? I've never seen her have issues with weight loss, and she's like, this really worked for me. I'd be like, no, it doesn't.
Right. Or like Kim K, who hasn't had plastic surgery, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
That body's been sculpted.
Exactly. So, that ethos is, oh, they've been through it as well. So it kind of gives you a sense of security, right?
I can trust them.
Right. Kind of, even if you think about the way you dress. So if Ms. Fletcher and I got on this camera and like we were in like, hoodies or like our hair is in top knots and no makeup and
our pajamas
or jammies, whatever, it would affect our credibility. You would be like, well, they don't really take the class seriously. Why should I? right? And so even our own presentation, how we dress, how we behave, can be considered an appeal to ethos.
Even the way we speak, right? We have our teacher voice that we're using in this video right
Yes,
now.
we enunciate so much.
Dr. Thayer and I are friends in real life, and when she calls me, I'm not like, "Good day, Dr. Thayer." I'm like, "Yo, what up?" Right? Like that's how we talk. So even the way that we present ourselves, you can also borrow credibility from other people. So in this other example, if you guys have ever seen those OxyClean commercials with I always want to call him Billy Blanks, but that's the typo guy.
Yeah.
Billy Mays. He now that's an unusual person to be talking to me about my washing machine, right? Because if you look at traditionally in America, who does most of the washing? Is it this man?
No.
No, it would be mom. So it would be women, probably women that look like us. That's what happens at my house. And so why isn't a mom telling me how to do my laundry? Why is this dude doing it? Well, if you watch some of the commercials, he talks about washer brands like Whirlpool and Maytag use this. So he brings in the credibility of other sources, right?
Absolutely.
Or he says Arm & Hammer approves or has partnered with OxyClean.
Mm-hmm.
So he's borrowing credibility of people who are, or companies that have existing credibility in that area.
Right. And if you think about your comment, like shoe companies, how many like rappers have shoe deals now, right? Like Cardi B's got Reebok. You don't know.
I wear Vans.
I don't know. Who else has one?
Well, I know Kanye is partnering with Gap to make them cool again because Gap is dying.
Right.
You probably don't even know what the Gap is.
Borrowing their coolness, their credibility, athletes, right? Borrowing their athletic success to sell their product. That is the appeal to ethos. So
in your essays, in an argument, how do you portray ethos? So if you're writing an argument, Dr. Thayer, how do you bring in ethos?
Well, first, I want to sound fancy, right? Now, not too fancy, like I don't know what the words mean.
Don't get crazy on that right click on the synonym thesaurus deal on word.
No, but I do want to sound intelligent, right? So I want to make sure that my writing is clear and that I'm kind of, writing in a more formal tone. I also want to borrow other people's credibility. In other words, I'm going to bring in the really good research. I'm not going to go to like Jimbo's website of facts and like throw some,
Does that exist?
Could be if you Googled it, I bet it's there.
Yahoo Answers isn't the one. Or sometimes your teachers will tell you not to cite Wikipedia in class, and Wikipedia is actually pretty accurate, but it sort of has the stigma of not being a good source. So if you are, I use Wikipedia all the time to find out about things I don't know about, but if I would never cite Wikipedia in an academic argument because it just doesn't give me as much credibility as going to the original source or finding something through the database.
Right. Also, fun fact, if you do find something cool in Wikipedia, look at the little subscript, the number, click on that, and it's going to bring you to the original source, which will be credible.
And you said that instead.
Yeah, it's a fun fact.
So lots of different ways we can portray ethos. And when you're watching your TED Talks, you want to think about how the speaker is portraying ethos. So like we were talking about the way that they present themselves. Do they share like, I'm talking about medical research and I'm a doctor. That makes sense. Versus if I were talking to you about football skills, you probably wouldn't trust me. I don't probably look like I played football. I didn't know.
But yeah, all of that goes into that credibility. Why should I believe this person, right? They've been through it. They have experience in it. All of that is ethos. That's that credibility.
Next up is pathos. So pathos is the feels.
All the feelings.
And this is really considered the strongest of the appeals because it kind of gets you in the gut. It's hard to resist something like this. The trick to remembering it is think empathy. Sympathy is a feeling word. So it's got that PATH in there. There's lots of different feelings. So if you look at this Gucci ad, it is sex appeal. So it's trying to make you feel that type of way. If you look at Sarah McLachlan in the corner, we've all seen those sad commercials.
It literally, and they always wheel out like the three-legged dog and like the one-eyed cat, and Sarah McLachlan, even when she like is just talking, she sounds like she's crying. She's just the sad.
They're there. She's smiling. She looks
sad. Even her smile is sad.
And even the way that the video is shot, makes you feel sad because it's like,
Yes.
in the arms of the
Sing
angel.
it.
And then
Sing
it
it.
gets you so close to that dog's face. It's like you could see into that puppy's soul, or that
Yes.
kitty cat with the one eye, right?
Yes.
They really like hammer it home. So I mean, if you watch movies, you see like slow-mo is a gut trick. Music.
Use of like violin strings, you
Oh.
know, it's so sad. If you hear an acoustic guitar or violin string, you're supposed to cry.
Yeah,
in case
that's
you
what
didn't know.
they want
Yeah.
you to do. So it can be sadness. It can be urgency too. If you look at the P90X, if you ever see infomercials or used car lots have these commercials out where
Yes.
they're like, buy now, act now, after the next 20 minutes, we're gonna buy that. And you're like, oh my God, I better call, I better order this at this moment. And it literally says that every time you ever see it. So like the timing is completely
Okay.
worthless.
But here's a pushback about this with pathos. When they do get all crazy like that, usually people aren't like, oh yes, I'm going to buy from them. What do? They go, oh, that's too loud. Let me change the channel. Let me mute. So that's why you have to be careful with pathos, because you have to balance it. Otherwise, you will get made fun of on shows like South Park, right?
Or people will think, well, it'll be so obvious that you're trying to emotionally manipulate them that people will be turned off. Like even the Sarah McLachlan commercials feel so emotionally manipulative. They're very overt.
Exactly.
Versus another side commercial, AT&T ran a series of commercials where they're talking about texting and driving, and the mom and the daughter were driving together, and the mom's like answering her daughter and her talking, and then all of a sudden she gets a text. She looks down, boom, she gets in an accident, and it's in slow-mo, and it's really sad, but it doesn't feel as overtly emotionally manipulative as maybe what is the Sarah McLachlan one for? The ASPCA?
ASPCA.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just
Humane Society.
sad Sarah McLachlan. It's just for Sarah McLachlan. So anyways, that's how you can bring in, how do you do it in an argument though?
So I could use personal stories, right? I could
But I'm not supposed to be personal in my arguments. So
that's a lie. That's a lie. So there is this idea that like, oh, you can't bring yourself into writing. We're here to debunk that. Actually, even in academic arguments, bringing in yourself not only can sometimes help the emotional appeal, but it can also help with that ethos, that credibility. Why are you writing about this? But you have to balance it. In other words, you can have a little bit of you, but you need to balance it with other research, other examples that you have found to show that my example is one of many, right?
Or you could bring in someone else's story too, right? So you can bring in other stories of others. You can be funny. Humor is,
yes, we're
this
very
lovely
funny.
banter is an example of an appeal to pathos. You can bring that into your argument. So this is an important piece. This is kind of what keeps people interested in arguments.
Absolutely.
And then the final piece is logos or logic. And this is really those building blocks that we talked about.
Right.
Is the claim arguable? Is it specific? Is it backed up by reasons?
Are the reasons valid and well researched? Have you done your research on both sides and thought about the counter argument of it, right? So that is the logos part of it, really looking at that hard, concrete evidence that supports your points.
And the way to remember that one is it just sounds like
logic.
Logos,
right.
Logic.
Logic is the brain, pathos is the heart, ethos is credibility.
It's the person.
It's the person.
Yeah. So if you were looking at, for example, we just talked about the texting commercial with the mom and the daughter and the sad music and the slow-mo. That's a very effective commercial. Like you watch that, and you're like, dang, I shouldn't text and drive. Also, you shouldn't text and drive. Just don't do it. Versus this, the average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. You see these, you ignore them because they're boring.
Right.
They don't really get your attention. So that's why it's important to bring in the other pieces of the argument. You can't just have logos. Otherwise, it's just a snooze fest.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. So in your essays, how do you portray logos?
Well, I bring in statistics. So if I'm talking about, say, what's something students always write about? Marijuana.
Oh, they love marijuana.
Medical marijuana. Okay. So I'm going to bring in perhaps the amount of money that, say, states like Colorado have received from, medical marijuana taxes or just recreational now. I don't know. My hands are all over the place today, y'all. So I could look at that. I could look at, percentage of, patients with cancer who have,
benefited.
Right. Like their symptoms have,
subsided or
thank you.
You're welcome. So the other thing, sometimes students get confused. They're like, wait a minute. You already said that my research counts as ethos. And now you're telling me it counts as logos. Which one is true? Well, it can be yes and yes.
Absolutely.
So the information itself can be the appeal to logic. So if Dr. Thayer says Colorado earned, I'm making up a number,
Okay.
56 million additional dollars.
Sure.
More? What?
More.
Probably more. 100 gajillion dollars. That's what they've earned as a result of legalizing marijuana. So Colorado earned this much money. That is an appeal to logos because that is a fact. Now, where she got it from is an appeal to ethos. So if Dr. Thayer got that information from a comments on a Twitter thread,
yeah,
no,
that's not
like
really
logically that's good information. So it fits under logos, but it doesn't fit under ethos because the
Right.
source itself was not credible. Versus if she gets the information from
the Department of Revenue.
Boom.
Right. So again, you want to make sure you've heard this before. Consider your source. It's really, really important. Good, have good research, but make sure it comes from a good place too.
Yes, exactly. So next up, you guys have your first
discussion board.
Discussion.
So we like to do these at the beginning of when you're starting an essay, just so you can practice what it is that we are asking you to do. So remember, for this essay, you are looking at how a speaker presents a TED Talk in an effective way. How does it make the argument effective? This is where students get tripped up. They want to summarize it. This is not a summary paper. You are not summarizing the TED Talk. I can go to the TED Talk and watch it. You are picking out parts that show, wow, they did a really effective job of bringing in jokes or using visuals or telling stories or whatever, engaging the audience by a call and response, whatever it is. So you want to think about how they are making an effective argument, not what they are saying.
Yeah, we don't care. The content of your TED Talk is irrelevant.
Exactly.
All we're interested is how are they using the 3 rhetorical appeals. So for your discussion board, you're going to watch one of our favorite TED Talks.
It's really good.
By the recently deceased, so sad, Sir Ken Robinson, who is just a wonderful person and has a great amount of wealth of knowledge on education, and he talks about this in this TED Talk, and the question he's asking is, do schools kill creativity? So it's a really interesting talk. I think it's about 20 minutes long. So you'll watch this, and then you're going to post 2 examples of any of the rhetorical appeals. So you can post 2 examples of ethos, or 1 of logos, 1 of pathos, however you want to do it. The trick is you have to read what everyone else has posted and not post the same thing.
Right. So you cannot double dip. Nobody can post the same thing. So you have to read what came before you. If you're the first person, congratulations.
You post whatever you want.
Exactly. So incentive for that as well.
Yeah, don't wait till the last minute.
Last minute, you got a lot of reading to do. You're gonna have to get creative. Okay. So remember, you're just posting 2. Just 2, not 2 for each. You're just posting 2. So it can be 2 logos, 2 pathos, 2 ethos.
1 of each.
1 of each, doesn't matter.
Any combo.
Just 2.
All right. So that is it. Up next, you'll do your discussion board and start trying to find a TED Talk. If you go to TED.com, there are tons of different talks. You can look at them based on topics. So if you know, like, and you can even look at ones, a lot of times students like to kind of go with what their major is going to be. So if I'm going to major in psychology, I might click on that psychology link and find talks under there.
Right.
So start thinking about what you're going to use, because we're going to have that ready for next week.
And I also had students, if they were struggling, there was just too many options, they may just do a Google search, most influential TED Talks of all time.
Yeah.
And that could be one, just as long as you don't pick Robinson's.
Yep. All right, guys.
If you have any questions whatsoever, send us an email. We're happy to clarify things. Just get working on your discussion board and finding your TED Talk.
Yeah, we look forward to reading your responses.
Bye.
Bye.